Alright, we're back with Grant, because there is more to say. So, in establishing... My cat is attacking. In establishing this idea of the Typhonian Ma'at, and the ideas of Michael Berteau with the OTOA, Grant starts to describe a Lovecraftian coven under the idea of this Black Snake Aegis, ruled by or worshipping deep ones by deserted lakes, includes some technology. Of note is an electromagnetic rod to stimulate the power zones and the erotic zones while preventing any sort of downward dissipation of the fire snake. I would assume that this is similar to a Violet Wand. Now, we've talked about the culture shadows. What are the problems here, other than the obvious, the glaring? The Sirius star, the Sotha star, is historically it's personified as a goddess Sopdet, or Sothis, and it's associated strongly with Isis, not with Set, as he claims. The consensus of the tarot origin places it as a 5th century Italian card game, 15th century card game. The Egyptian thing, like the other 3 claims, are unsupported. This compression with the cultures does not work. Vives are Loa-specific cosmograms. Ifa is a very strict, very rigorous body of... I said 2,000 last time, my mind was somewhere else. Of 256 Odu, they're not interchangeable sigil sets, and they don't map to the Kabbalistic tree. His Kala-centric sexual themes is a very Western view of this. It's like we have seen historically. It is downplaying any sort of lineage or initiation, and there's no diversity of the tantric traditions mentioned here. I apologize, y'all. I have something in my eye. I try to get it out between videos. This is some labor doing this. The other book we were going to look at was A Nightside of Eden, published in 1977. This book is kind of infamous. What people I talk to, this book is always met with groans when you bring it up. But we're going to... Because this book is so outrageous, we're going to try and bullet point hammer through this. It's a piece of my hair. So, Grant, in Nightside of Eden, claims that there are tunnels within the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, and you use these tunnels to access the Qliphothic Undertree, and there's 22 of them. I have already previously made a video on the Qliphoth and how this whole Qliphoth thing is incorrect. He points to Crowley's Liber 231 to back this up, saying much after the fact that this is what Crowley was writing about, even though the system didn't exist at the time. He then claims that we live in Universe A, and when you tunnel through the tunnels of Set, you reach the Qliphoth, and in doing so, you enter Universe B with Sirius Star B, which was the Isis star, the Transplutonic. Now, Universe B is ruled by Lovecraftian deep ones, old ones, great ones, Lovecraftian gods. And so he grafts this into thelemic and Kabbalistic spaces. Um, that's what the whole premise of the book is about this universe B and the tunnels of Set and everything. Liber 231 being used, it does not contain any, it doesn't set out any sort of tunnels of Set. This is some superstructure that Grant just put on there to back his stuff. We already discussed the issues with Sirius. He continues with this Afro-diasporic motif where he wants to put it all together and tie it to Egypt. You know, doing its thing with the weird correspondences. It's a whole problem. Grant himself was also kind of a problem. I've got a timeline of things here. In 1955, Kenneth Grant made the claim of a new planet, started doing this whole thing. Carl Germer kicked him out of the OTO after he wrote the New Isis Lodge manifesto all about the planet. Grant then goes on, allegedly it was Grant, goes on to forge a document that says he was the new head of the OTO, that he was appointed to it. The original thing, when it was called out, it was claimed to be an April Fool's prank. Later on, his publicist publicly apologizes for this, and then there's a claim that Grant didn't even know anything about it. Grant takes a weird stance on the 11th degree writings of Crowley, is called out later by Phil Hines and others as taking a very homophobic stance or a heteronormative stance to it, where he rewrites the homoerotic reading of it and says instead actually it has to be done with a woman who is on her period, a woman who is menstruating. So there's a whole rewrite of this, as well as this whole Nightside map is a problem. Grant, ultimately, whatever his acumen as an occultist was, his greatest acumen was that he could spin a story. Kenneth Grant is our next stop on the left-hand path because many of these ideas end up pulling through. Black Flame, Black Serpent, Serpent Fire. This is our big systemology of the Cliffoth that comes in here. This is where some bad actors in the left-hand path start to pull the Lovecraftian stuff. But we should see Grant nowadays not as an occultist breaking new ground, but we should see this as a man who had an imagination and a story to tell. I have attempted to do my best to power through this without any of my bias, but Grant should not be taken as the authority that is trailed on, especially the authority that our next step claims him to be, as they go off on him, spring off on him. As next we will be talking about Thomas Carlson and the Dragon Rouge, and that's going to be another whole discussion. May your ancestors bring you the sweetest of portents, and may you have the most wonderful dreams. Good night.